John Sargent with the Alarm Museum, and we're at the Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco for the December 2022 California Alarm Association Convention.
And I'm Ralph W. Sevinor, also from the Alarm Museum. And I have a real pleasure today, and that's to introduce an old friend of mine, actually a mentor, and that's Peter Raymond. We've known each other for many years. We've known a lot of people together. You've been my go-to guy when I have questions. So thank you very much over the years. So Peter, give me a little background. How, growing up, and then maybe take us into how you got into the industry.
Okay, I'd be glad to do so. Growing up, what I really wanted to do was fly airplanes. Okay, that's what I wanted to do. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. And as far as being able to do it at that time. So out of college, I went to work, and I was hired by General Motors, which at the time was a big deal.
And about what year?
It was in the early 60s, let's put it that way, very early 60s. And I was very, very fortunate in that I was given an assignment at that time that allowed me to integrate 3 models of automobiles and how you put them together. It was the Buick, Pontiac, and Oldsmobile, and only one of them remains today. Okay, and that was a great, great learning experience that gave me a good work ethic, taught me so much about relationships with people, because we were dealing with people from all over, with different disciplines. Did that for quite a few years, and it was very interesting and a great learning experience. So that's kind of how I started life, okay, and then after a while wound up in a situation with a small company because I wanted to be a big frog in a small pond, okay, and it was a little electronics company, and at that time electronics were just starting. It was just something brand new. You were looking at a radio and you still had tubes and things like that.
Yeah. And what city were you?
This was all in New Jersey. It started out in a town called Linden, New Jersey, okay, and gravitated a little bit south into the southern portion of New Jersey, which abutted Pennsylvania. And the reason why I bring that up is because I had the opportunity at that time to meet a gentleman by the name of Frank Cole. Frank Cole became the president of Wells Fargo, and he hired me when Wells Fargo was a relatively small company. And I'm not even sure how many branches we had, but I went to work with Wells Fargo, which is really my introduction into this industry. Okay, and I guess that was late 60s, early 70s, and as you get as old as I am, the years kind of blend and you don't know. But I worked for Frank, and we went on a kick to purchase companies. I was able to interface with manufacturers, with dealers, and it was very interesting. And through that experience, I met two gentlemen, one who's sitting here, and another one by the name of Charlie Darsh, who became a mentor. And to this day, lifelong friendships, huge amount of knowledge that they passed along, Ralph and Charles. And it was a great experience getting into mergers and acquisitions, the technical portion of it, learning the inside factors of a business and how it's supposed to work. Traveled all over when we started buying branches. And of course, Frank, if you knew him, was quite an individual. He was a great mentor, blustery fellow, knew what he wanted to do, grew up in the industry as a pole climber in Chicago, and used to fire me every day.
Was it publicly traded back then?
It had split from the Wells Fargo Bank.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
At that time, and the owners were still involved, which was Malcolm Baker and Solomon Baker.
Oh, right.
The Bakers.
Baker Industries.
Exactly.
Baker Industries, and I had the opportunity to meet and do a few things for Malcolm, who also had other businesses. And at the time, our industry was not a industry as we know it today. I would not classify our industry today as a security industry. Our industry today is a communications industry. That's what we do. We do it very, very well. Ask anyone from Verizon or AT&T, some of the innovations that they have came from our industry. The people in our industry were entrepreneurs. They had a lot of foresight, okay, and scraped along to make a living that blossomed into great companies, into absolutely great companies. Our industry grew, and by the year 2000, I think we had about 16 to 18,000 individual companies that our industry created through its technology and the ability to interface with each other. So, worked for Frank Cole, and that became pretty interesting, and then wound up being the president of Security Protective Services, and that company was sold. And at that time, I looked at everything and I said, I had a non-compete, and a good friend of
You say that, but so, and Frank, you know, of course, ended up with National Guardian.
Guardian. I left before that.
You left before that, okay.
Yeah, I just left right at that time because of it being about to be, become part of National Guardian. And I had an opportunity to become the president of a small company, and I was with that company for a number of years, and it grew and it was sold. So at that time, I had a non-compete both within the industry, but more importantly, geographically. And a good friend of mine was still in the industry, gave me a call and said, hey, look, I have a problem in Puerto Rico. Would you go down there and take a look at it? He says, it's not going to violate anything. I said, sure, what the hell? And away I went. And that was the start of my own company, because after the 1 year restrictions were up, I decided that I was going to stay as a consultant, and that was more than 30 years ago, up until this past year, where while I still do consulting, I joined a company with another gentleman by the name of Uwe Jansen, who's here, and we have developed a company, Rock International, or he and I, and we do a lot of the big box stores. So, but I still maintain relationships in all of Central South America and the Mediterranean, and I still work in that area in only our industry. And I say our industry because I've gotten older and looked at the people in the industry. I divide the industry into two segments. One, the fellows like us who have been around a long time, who were really the creators. And the other segment, which are now part of the hedge funds, the PE firms, and the non-starters, if you will, but look at us and recognize what we have done as an industry and want to get involved.
Why do they? Why does equity capital and venture capital like our industry?
I think for several reasons. One is the recurring revenue model.
Reliability.
Okay. And what we do. What we do is impervious to the economic situation of the country. It's a requirement, but more importantly is our ability to take technology and convert it into useful applications for the industry, the home buyer, the companies, and what they need. And of course, a lot of it is driven fire-wise by legislation. So our industry is a foundation for these people, and they look at it. It's been a wonderful industry. Most importantly, from my personal perspective, it's the people. The people in the industry, I think, have been mentors, not afraid to share, work, help, and the manufacturers, the dealers. I mean, you just can't talk enough about what we've done for the communities, with the police chiefs, the fire chiefs, and all. Very rare. You don't find that in the automobile industry. You don't find that in a lot of industries. Okay, so that's how I look at it. It's our ability to integrate into that portion of society, and we offer that society the opportunity to be secure. We offer that society the opportunity to be a community, okay? And we do it seamlessly.
A question on Wells Fargo. They were unique because they were not only an installation company, monitoring company, but they were also a manufacturing company. They manufactured, I think, the Wells Fargo polling computer, if I recall.
Yes, right. They had a manufacturing group, and one of the manufacturing groups that they had was right here in California, a research group, and they made fire panels. They were quite an interesting company.
Yeah, they were really ahead of their time.
They were ahead of their time.
So they felt they couldn't buy it, they would build it.
They would make it and build it. Exactly
Interesting.
Right. Exactly right. And a lot of people aren't aware of that. So we did get involved to an extent in manufacturing. But a lot of what we did was going out into the field, buying companies, and I believe when they were sold, somewhere around 70 branches were involved.
There was a split off, if I recall, Pony Express.
Pony Express.
And how did that come into play? Remember that?
With Bel Air Patrol, right here in Bel Air, was a separate group that did all of the, Beverly Hills and that kind of thing. And as Wells Fargo grew, it brought along with it, other industries that also grew as support industries and individuals. We can name individuals that became very prominent. Dennis Stern, legal, so many different people that came up, and unfortunately, they split into different things, went with different alarm companies. It was the birth of National Guardian.
Right. I didn't realize that a lot of National Guardian came from Wells Fargo.
All Wells Fargo.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good, talented people. Very talented.
And then I think that, I could be wrong, this is so far back, Wells Fargo, Bel Air Patrol, I think, while that continued, at some point, when did that end up being owned by ADT?
I'm not sure that it did. I think
at some point
was split off, and its function is still today.
Right.
It's still being used today, but by a separate individual.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think ADT wound up with Bel Air Patrol. Of course, I could be wrong.
Or maybe it was spun off.
But
But I think the name still exists, Bel Air Patrol.
Oh, they're still there.
It was a very, let me tell you, that was an exciting.
Well, and there was West Tech. Somewhere along the line.
Different company, West Tech.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. And then you had people enter our industry. One who you're going to interview, Tim Wall, Jim Cover. Different people that came into the industry. So that's a good example of how an industry grew, and its creation just brought along so many other people, industries, technology.
Yeah.
I mean, incredible.
We came about it at a really interesting time. It was the metamorphosis of an industry, if you think
That's
about
right.
it. You know,
That's
it came from basics, and it was so exciting to write those rules, right? And you try to explain it to the next generation that, you know, we helped to start this as an
That's right.
industry, right?
I remember, and just to what you're saying, I could call Charlie Dorsch and say, Charlie, I need this, that, this, and that. I need you to ship it today. Okay? No contract, no purchase order,
Right.
nothing. Okay? And it happened. There was such a magnitude of trust of how we operated. Now, today I can't do that. I have to generate a purchase order, I have to do this, I have to do that, and somebody wants to look at my credit and
Bank of attorneys to get it by.
attorneys and this
Yeah.
contract and change this word.
Right.
It's a whole different
It
world.
is, it is.
And it takes time. When I did it with Charlie and Ron Rothman at ADI and those kinds of things, it was a whole different world. And but those relationships today still exist, and they're as strong as they were 35 years ago, 40 years ago. And it's unfortunate, or maybe fortunate, I don't know, that we don't operate like that any longer. Okay, but the relationships, and recently with my new company, I called Ralph that I needed assistance in Massachusetts. It wasn't a question of him not saying or doing. It was, hello, how are you? It was a social thing, and I'll take care of it. Oh, that's it. I don't know that we have that. PE firms are now getting into our business. As a consultant, I see that all the time. I get calls from them all the time. PE firms in New York, okay? I want to buy an alarm company. Well, why do you want to buy an alarm company? First of all, your terminology wrong. You want to buy a communications company, okay? So we're starting to see people, to Ralph's question, come into an industry because of the metamorphosis of the industry as to what is developed into a platform for so many other things. Stop and think about it. When we started in the industry to today, the changes that have taken place.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you had a transistor, you had a resistor, you had this, you had that. No one ever said chip. Okay, now you're saying chips. You have multiple tasks being done by a chip.
Right. Computers.
Computers. I mean, everything was written, and we were there for that, and we did a lot to make that happen in our industry. So it was very interesting time.
What opportunities do you see in the industry?
Okay,
If you were to talk to someone that's just starting out, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that there are boundless opportunities in this industry, whether it be sales and marketing, whether it be engineering, whether it be becoming an entrepreneur, but more importantly, from my perspective, because I've been involved in it in more than 30 years, is the opportunity to work globally. Communications now allows us to do that. I work globally. I monitor out of foreign countries. There's just so much in opportunity, and so much opportunity with the foreign countries wanting to come into the U.S. There's two major foreign companies now that are planting their flag here, okay, because of our marketplace and the ability technically, okay, to monitor. Now you take the youngsters coming in today, I don't know that we as an industry do enough to attract them. Now in New Jersey, where I'm from, we have initiated a apprentice program, okay? And we're working with veterans through our association, California has a great apprentice
Right.
program. We've got to do more to have the people understand, have these youngsters understand what our industry is and what we do and how well we do it.
Mhm.
And guaranteed, if they understand that, you got a sale.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
Are you finding outside the United States, you know what we've got here, but when you have these other countries, how, it's not maybe the right word, but how primitive they are?
Okay,
You know?
good question. Excellent question. Brazil, okay, large country. Brazil can use so many more companies that do work down there.
Mhm.
You've got 4 or 5 major companies, not necessarily US based, okay? The market is huge, and the infrastructure is now there to have us grow. I would say if you look at some of the foreign countries, okay, they're probably 10 years behind us in certain ways, but don't be misled by that. Because I get into some countries that you would say, boy, oh boy, they have running water. And technologically, they're doing things out of necessity that we wouldn't even think about.
Mm.
So there's a very, very good mix of the ability to expand into a foreign country. And right now, I'm involved in a situation where there's an American company wanting to buy in Brazil.
I was just going to ask that.
Yes, absolutely.
So you're seeing that?
Yes,
Because I know we talked about companies outside of the US coming in.
yeah.
But
Now, the
it's good to hear
reverse,
that, right.
PE firms who go unnamed, one of them owns 23 alarm companies in foreign countries.
Mm.
Okay, because you're catering to a market that has the money. You're catering to a market because of the socioeconomic conditions that demand it. It's not a question of you having to sell it. They're coming to you to buy
Right.
it. So it's a different world. The Chinese are very, very prominent in trying to start companies in different countries. And then you have manufacturers in foreign countries that are now
Yeah.
really expanding out. Israel, Japan, China, selling products all over. And we feel it, we see it, we know it, okay? We're very content in our industry to not, pardon me, to not, I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
To not, we're very content in our industry to rely on our own country, to rely on our own facilities here. Other countries aren't. I mean, they're expanding because of the markets.
But I think we also need to look at it. You sort of got me thinking about it, that we need to also look, we're myopic in the respect that we look at the US, but even as an integrator, an alarm company, we should be looking outside too for items.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, I've written articles on doing business in Brazil, Peru, and other countries, and they clamor for what we can bring
Right.
to the table. And the technology is there now to allow us to do that, okay? But we don't take advantage of all of this, lack of a better term, free stuff that's available to us to start a company in a foreign country,
Mhm.
okay? And incidentally, just as a point of information, the monitoring rates are a lot greater than we get here in the United States,
Mm.
okay? Because it's the wealth, it's that segment of the population that's demanding it. And I will tell you this, and this is a fact, if you show up on time and be there when you say you're going to and start the job, you're a winner.
Pretty simple, right?
Bert, it's as
Just be
simple as
there,
that.
just get it done.
Nothing different
Right.
than you would
Yeah.
have here. How many times have you been disappointed
Sure.
when the washing machine repairman says, I'm gonna be there Tuesday, is not there, your wife just absolutely goes crazy, and, you know, so it's
Yeah.
the same thing, absolutely the same thing.
Well, this is great. This is really
I know.
interesting because you brought it from a global perspective. And you got me thinking about it also. How do we parlay that? Take advantage of that.
Well, there's several ways to take advantage of it. One is to look at a very small company in a foreign country, okay? And they'd be anxious to have the technology knowledge, et cetera. You can still monitor here if that's how you want to go. But you're taking advantage of markets that haven't been saturated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, give you a good example. I would love to have 2% of the market, less than 2% of the market in Sao Paulo, Brazil. I'd be on the beach every day. It's that kind of a situation. And we have a lot of the PE firms now that are really taking a good look. And once again, we think we have a lock on technology and ability. Not so.
Right.
Not so. Every time I travel, I learn something. Somebody is doing something very innovative. Okay, coming up with an idea that's explosive in that country. And the interesting too is in many of those countries, you'll get financial assistance from the government just to have you there. So it's a great learning experience.
Do you think maybe some of that is not developed so fast because also they're maybe more tough on crime there than what we've got going on here?
No, they are much tougher on crime. But I think over the years, the stability of the governments in a lot of those countries was questionable. But as the years have gone by, you see a much more stable environment because everybody starts to realize, hey, we have to look out for the other guy because if he fails, I'm failing. So you start to see much more stability and a lot more of questioning how you can help them. What can you do? There's so many facilities out there to help American countries to go into foreign countries. And the people, contrary to popular belief, they'll work, 100 hours a day because it's an opportunity for success. Nothing unlike everybody who's an entrepreneur have done in the U.S. It can happen.
Well, this is great. You gave us a good, more global view and some really good tidbits of information. So, Peter, I want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Really appreciate having me.
Yeah, Peter, thank you. And is there anything in closing that you'd like to touch on?
The only thing that I'll touch on in closing is, again, that I mentioned, I think, at the beginning of this discussion, is the people. I mean, it's been a great, environment to work in. And
It's like a family.
It's a family. It's a family. And the relationships are so strong that it helps everyone out. So that's my closing comment.
All right.
Mind those pesos.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.